I mean, we really should all be working on self-development in all the different ways we can, whether it's personally, whether it's with relationships, but especially with our career. You know, like there's so much more to learn. I mean, I'm always trying to learn more. And, you know, some people come to me and they say I'm an expert, but I'm like, I feel like there's still so much more I have to learn before I can reach that status. You know, you have to keep learning every day, whether it's, you know, different skills or whether it's just general knowledge, or like there's just so much more to learn. So yeah, keep learning.
Welcome to the Holistic Nutrition Hub podcast. I'm here today with Lindsay. Sorry, Lindsay, what's your last name? I didn't put that on my notes.
That's okay. It's Carvalho.
Carvalho. I probably would have butchered that anyways.
It's pretty normal for people to butcher it.
Anyways, Lindsay has a background in biology, biochemistry, and genetics, and this has helped her have a deeper understanding of the workings of nutrition and the role it has on the body, which she now shares with students at CSNN and Grant MacEwan University in Alberta, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Edmonton.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Lindsay.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Me too. I really, honestly, nutritional research is, well, it's a hot topic. Like, I mean, we in the field that we're in, like we mentioned before, nutritional research, it's a muddy water. It can be very confusing if you look at one study and then don't look at another, and all the information is changing constantly.
Yes.
Which I'm sure we're going to get into. But before we do that, do you mind just explaining a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and how you started in nutritional research?
Yeah. So my background actually isn't in nutrition research, but it's definitely a passion of mine now. Going way back, I went through a college program to learn how to work in a lab when we lived in Toronto. That's where I'm from. And I loved working in the lab. I just love science. I love learning how things kind of fit together. So that was laying a lot of the groundwork. And then after that, I was able to transfer over to Guelph University to get a degree in molecular biology and genetics. So after that, I worked in a few different labs. And then after we moved here to Edmonton, I was lucky enough to work with Lauren Terrell, the gentleman who created the hepatitis B vaccine, working in a hep lab. So that was really fantastic. It was a really great learning experience. There was a lot of really good role models there. But then after I had my third child, it just became impossible to keep working. It just financially wasn't viable. Time-wise, life gets quite a bit more hectic when you have lots of little people around.
I know. So, I have 3 too, so I completely understand what you mean.
Yeah. So I decided to stay home. Financially, it was more viable, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I should say, it was more viable for my husband to stay working and for me to stay home, which seemed to fit to our dynamic, because I just love playing with the kids and, you know, cooking and just doing all the fun stuff with the kids. I love teaching them, like throwing a little bit of my influence in terms of my science background and nutrition. And it's funny hearing stories as they're getting older now. They come back and they're like, my teacher said this, but that's wrong, Mom. So after, it was after my second child, actually, I developed Hashimoto's.
Okay.
And which is an autoimmune that affects your thyroid. And I did everything I could on my own. And I just thought, you know what, I need to learn more about holistic health, because I want to be the healthiest I can be, despite my diagnosis. And so I went back, and I remember sitting in class thinking like, oh, it's too bad I don't get to use my genetics anymore. And then I discovered epigenetics, which is like a whole other area of how diet and lifestyle interact with your genes. And that just really sucked me right down the rabbit hole of learning about all the really cool nutrition research that's out there and how it all fits together and how much of an impact it really has on our body. And so I just started reading lots of papers and reading lots of books. And really trying to find my voice in terms of nutrition research, and trying to get others excited about it, because I get very excited when I get to read papers, but I know not everybody does, but it's an important part of what we do.
Yeah.
If we want to be making recommendations to people, we have to keep up to date, and we have to know what the most current research is saying. Otherwise, we're not giving the best recommendations. And so that's really what led me to where I am now.
That's awesome. So how long have you been teaching at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition in Edmonton? You said Edmonton, right?
Yeah, in Edmonton. Okay. Yeah, I think it's 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've been mostly teaching, for those that have taken the program, I teach the Sympto. Okay. And then a little bit of the biochemistry of the mental health portion of it. Right. I was approached about teaching the more spiritual side, but that's not my jam.
Not your jam.
It's not my jam. It would be doing the students a disservice. And then I teach the biochemistry and a few others, but I love getting right into the science of it.
Yeah.
And I hope my goal is to bring it to the students in a way that makes it click for them, so that they can understand it. Because it's, again, I've had students come up and say, like, I just don't understand how like proteins work,
yeah,
or how genetics work. But it's really neat once you see how all the puzzle pieces fit together, and then you're like, oh, this is why when you eat this, it really improves your health.
Yeah, it's a really interesting like field to be in. There's so many things to look into. There's so many areas that one can actually choose to go down the rabbit hole of, like you said. Yeah. You know, I'm with you. Like before I had children, I wanted to be a biologist myself, actually. Yeah. And then I had children really young, and that just kiboshed everything. But yeah. I've kind of married, excuse me, my love for science, just like you, with nutrition. And when I was living in Vancouver, I was actually teaching eco-nutrition. And so obviously there's a lot of nutritional research in there, but also like a lot of ecology and other things. And I actually got into nutrition not only for my own health reasons as well, but because I really loved understanding how plants could be grown in a sustainable way. And so I started my backyard garden and like learning how to like really make make soil healthy. And so then of course there's such a huge amount of science behind that too. Like, and so to really know what we're talking about, I mean, it's all science based, but to really form your own opinions about what's right for you, for your genetics, for your own health, for your own biochemistry, you gotta understand everything. Like, it's really, I love it, honestly. I think that like, I think it's the most important part of what we do.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yeah. But I'm gonna preface this with like, when I was in school, I loved science, I loved biology, I loved studying, but I found nutritional literature research really confusing. So why do you think that most people or most students have a hard time understanding the research that is out there?
Really, when we look at lit research in general, it's a whole new language, and it's really a skill that has to be developed. Mm-hmm. You know, if we were to throw you in a whole new area or a whole new country, it would take you time to acclimatize to whatever environment you're in.
Right.
And so you have to approach it with that mental outlook. Like, this is going to be hard. It is going to be challenging. But just like anything you do, whether it's riding a bicycle or, you know, learning how to work with technology, at the beginning, it is hard. It takes a lot more time. It takes a lot more mental energy, because you're learning new words. You're learning new terms. You're learning new systems. You're learning new math, which is very scary for a lot of people. You know, when I talk about math and they're like, oh. But it's just learning a new language. And once you start breaking it down, it becomes a lot easier. One of the things I love to do in class is when we start talking about the medical terminology, if you break it down so you understand all the components, it's easy to understand the word. Anything with itis at the end, we know it has to do with inflammation.
Right.
And typically the first part of the word is going to indicate where we're going to find that inflammation.
Mm.
So we know right away kind of a little bit about what's going on.
Right.
It's the same thing with lit research. Once you start breaking down the terminology, and I tell people right at the beginning, do not read a complex paper without your computer. Be able to Google the terms, highlight them, start learning about, whatever area, find a topic that interests you, find a general review paper, and then start reading that review paper, because that's where you're going to start learning kind of where the base knowledge is at. You're going to start learning what all the new words are, the right terminology for things. There's really not a lot of math and stats in it when you're looking at review papers. It's kind of just a general background of what they know about that one topic. And that's a really good place to start, because that's the hardest part, is learning the words. What do they mean? So that when you start delving deeper, that's not going to be a mountain for you to get over.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's like the basics of what makes it complicated to kind of analyze it, is all of the statistics and all of those things included in the papers.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's where people start getting caught up, because this is not typically, you're not reading papers in a very casual way. The way that they word things in most like formal research articles is very stiff. It's in third person, there's no emotion involved there. And so it is a little bit more challenging to get through it. However, do not try and pick up an article about something where you're like, oh, I don't want to be learning about this, because it's not going to work. Everybody has their niche. Find a topic that you love, and start learning more about it, because then it's not work. Then you're like, okay, well, what does this word mean? Oh, I finally get that. Okay. So going back to inflammation, which is a really good example, when we look at inflammation, there's a lot of biochemical components to it. And so it's not just this generalized inflammation. There's cytokines, there's interleukins, there's all these other chemical words. And most people would look at that and think like, oh my gosh. But if you love learning about inflammation because you want to improve your health,
you got to know those words.
Yeah. And what do they mean? And like even things going back to, what can you talk to your doctor about getting tested, so that you understand where you are in terms of your overall health, and it all ties in.
Yeah.
So it is learning the language. It is learning a little bit about how they set up the experiments and how they analyze the experiments. And it is hard at first, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, just like any new skill you need to develop.
I really like that analogy actually of, it's like learning a new language. And I really feel like that resonates with me. I just learned how to speak French in the last year. And so I feel that I'm like, yes, perfect analogy.
The more you immerse yourself in it, the better you get, right? The more comfortable you get.
Well, and there's so many people talking about nutritional research on podcasts now, which is really amazing. Like Sean and I, we listen to a lot of like Chris Kresser and Rob Wolf and Diana Rogers, and a lot of people who are diving down pretty deep into the nutrition and the holistic world, I guess is the best way of putting it. And it's quite fascinating. Who's the other one?
I really like Rhonda Patrick as well.
Oh, that's who I was just going to say, and I couldn't remember her name.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, she totally bugs out with the science, and I just, I'm all over it. It's awesome.
Sometimes I'm like, whoa, this is a bit much, but the more you hang on, the more you understand. And she really does dive quite deep, but it's worth listening to, because maybe you'll find a topic like that you're super interested in.
But I really feel with podcasts, if you listen to it, if it is over your head, it's like explaining a new concept to a child. You explain it in the best way you can, and they are going to glean from it whatever their mind is capable of understanding. And then as they get more comfortable with whatever that topic is, that understanding is just going to get deeper. So we have to look at it the same way. If you don't know a topic, start listening to it, and then you'll slowly start picking up on what the words are and kind of how it all interplays and what it means. And you'll pick up what you want. But then you can always, and this is why I love podcasts, like they're really one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
You know, you can go back and listen to it again. It's like, oh, I remember she was talking about, you know, fatty acids and omega-3s and why they're good for the brain, you know, and how it can really help lower your risk for dementia later.
Right.
And she was saying something about like which form is best to take. And then you can go back and listen to it again because you kind of got the general concept, but now you want to go back for details.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how we build our knowledge. You get a general concept, and then you keep learning a little bit more, and you get a loose skeleton of kind of how it all works. And then you slowly build on that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if I have to think back of when I started learning about nutrition and nutrition science, I guess, and how it works in our body, and I wouldn't be able to pick up Rhonda Patrick's podcast and listen to it and understand what she's saying. You know, but I think for some nutritionists, the ones who have health issues are actually almost luckier, because I feel like you're more inclined to dig down the rabbit holes to try and figure out what's wrong with you. Like I'm sure like you did with Hashimoto's, you know, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia 2 years ago. Yeah. And that's literally led me down numerous rabbit holes of inflammation and biotoxins and genetics and epigenetics and gut health. Like I've literally been down every rabbit hole you can imagine to try and figure out the connections, you know, because it's such a crazy condition with so many symptoms. Yeah. So it's really, I mean, illness is a really good motivator to learn more, especially if you don't like feeling the way you're feeling. You know, we have so many resources now. We really have to tap into the resources we have available to us. We have doctors. You know, I feel very strongly we need to find that balance between Eastern medicine and Western medicine. We have available to us all of the tools within Western medicine, but we also have the same amount of tools with Eastern medicine. So we can do what we can proactively to help our health, but we can still use Western medicine and find that balance, right? Like find whatever works for you, but learn both sides and then figure out where you want to fall. I lost my train of thought there a little bit. That's okay. We do that on here. Don't worry. Like all the time I'll blank and I'm like, I have no idea what I was going to say, guys. Yeah. Point. It'll come back to me later. You know, I thought I wanted to dig into that because you said Eastern medicine as well. And I am a firm believer in using both as a collaboration. And it wasn't until, you know, like I was diagnosed and Western medicine couldn't help me anymore that I started actually digging into still the science of Eastern medicine and how it does work amazingly, apparently, you know, like, and that's what I've used mostly the last 6 months has been good nutrition, good supplementation, and Eastern medicine and breathing. That's a big one. Yeah. And sleep. Sleep is undervalued too. Well, I'm a hypersomniac, so I have no problem with that. It's actually, I have to take medication to actually make me wake up. But what I was going to say about the science of Eastern medicine, which is really cool, is that, you know, Sean digs into all of these things for his personal training. And it's really fascinating for him to find something related to his training, for example, like metabolism and like metabolic function in the body. And then I'll be learning about it in my little like Eastern medicine world over here, and metabolism and nutrition and all of this. And then we connect it together and we see how science is pulling bits of Eastern medicine into it. And one more side note, because it's really funny, is Sean will be doing exercises that he's been prescribed for his back pain from an injury. And it's all breathing and yoga, like yoga movements. And I'm like, so you're doing yoga again? And he refuses to like to do it with me. And so he's gone to like the physiotherapist, he's gone to like other trainers, he's gone to like everybody you can imagine. And every time they prescribe him yoga. Yeah. Well, it's funny.
one of my favorite date nights with my husband is we'll go for a yoga class.
Amazing.
And then go out for some drinks after. Detox, retox.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because it allows us to really chill out before we go have these deeper conversations about just our life together, where we want to be, where we are right now, and just talk about whatever's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But the first time I took him to a yoga class, I'm like, just come with me and try it out. If you don't like it, you don't ever have to come again. And we go into the class and I'm kind of watching him the whole time. And as soon as it was done, I was like, so like, what do you think? He goes, you know, it's just breathing and stretching, but I feel really good.
Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah, it's a simple concept,
Yeah.
but how many people take the time to breathe deeply for that long and just stretch it out and just really disconnect from the world for a little bit? And, you know, it's really good for you. So, and it's funny now because there's so much research looking into traditional habits and traditional just things that we do, whether it's fermented foods, that's one of my favorites, or intermittent fasting is another big one. These things have been around for millennia.
Forest bathing, you know, like herbal medicines.
And so now we're looking at it and scientists are like, whoa, look at this. And we're like, we've known that for a while now, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just showing the science behind it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. They've known this for 5,000 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So no, it's this is why I love science, because it's, you know, we may know something is good, but we don't know how or why it's good. And so science is answering those questions. Yeah.
It is a really interesting, well, science is just good. I mean, that is what it is. So what are the 3 to 5 things that people should be looking for when they're looking for like a solid study, or like to make an informed decision? What should they be doing?
Yeah, so good question. There's a lot of really mixed information out there, even within the science field.
Yes.
Like let's not kid ourselves here. There's a lot of different ways science can be manipulated.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate. And there's the way that the world works now is such a consumerist monetary world that is a huge part of bias. You know, we hear about, resveratrol is fantastic for you. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
However, when the studies first started coming out, typically it was funded by wineries, you know, and that's a huge bias. So that would be one of the really big things we want to look at is, where is there potential bias?
Right.
And it says, if you go and look at primary research articles or any type of research article you would get on PubMed, which is one of my favorite sites because it's all peer reviewed. There's another thing we should look for. It's all peer reviewed articles. It has to say on there somewhere in the article, typically it's at the very end, right after the conclusion, if there's a conflict of interest. So I was reading one the other day about, I think it was intermittent fasting, and it said the conflict of interest was that one of the authors for the article had actually written a book about the benefits of intermittent fasting. And so really it could be construed that she was trying to self-promote.
Right.
You know, so that's one thing to look for, what bias. And sometimes you have to do a bit of research, like who do they work for? We hear this a lot in pharmaceuticals, in agriculture, dairy industry, beef industry, just to name a few in terms, like, especially in the US with the lobbyists and things like that. Yeah. And so we do have to be aware and do a little bit of digging to see, like, where is this information coming from? What potential benefits could be had by the individuals publishing. And hopefully it's just science is really their only motivating factor. They just want to learn more and they want to share what they've learned. So that's a big one. We want to make sure it's peer reviewed. Peer reviewed means that once the paper is ready to publish, whether it's a review, whether it's a regular like investigative article, whether it's an observational study, no matter what type of study it is, if they want to publish it, it should be, once it's submitted, before it's published, they send it off to other people that are experts in the same field and have them vet it out.
Right.
And, you know, if there's any issues with their wording or their conclusions or in their discussion, this is when that will come to light. Sometimes it's even as big as, you know what, there was some type of fault in the design, or maybe something wasn't vetted enough in terms of the analysis, like where's the data coming from. And so sometimes researchers actually have to go back into the lab and redo some experiments.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that it's peer reviewed.
Right.
So, and that's why I like PubMed, because everything on there is peer reviewed. They don't put it up there unless it's peer reviewed. The other thing you really want to look for is, and I just had it. Oh, I know. This is a really big one. And most people don't know about this. I would say the research design. You need to make sure the people who are publishing are going into enough detail that the experiment or whatever the study is can be replicated to the letter.
Right.
And this is where I think people get overwhelmed as they read this materials and methods section, or data collection if it's a meta-analysis or some type of review, and they're like, oh my god, what is going on? Like, I have no idea what these different like cross-sectional studies or like randomized control trials, like what is blinding, like they just, again, this is where language comes in. They're just definitions for how the experiment was put together. Yeah, but it has to be done in such a way that you could go and repeat it. So when I teach at Grant Macewan, I teach for massage therapy students.
Okay.
And when we're looking at some of the massage therapy papers that are coming up, massage is a fantastic complementary medicine, but they have to be able to repeat the techniques exactly. And the same thing for any study. You know, so if you're using instruments, you need to know exactly the instrument, the model. The detail in this section needs to be very deep.
Wow.
And so when you're reading it again, it's like, oh my god, this is kind of boring. Like, why do I need to know, you know, what lot number the vitamins were from? Well, it's because they need to know, you know, the brand, the you know,
the potential potency too of the thing.
Exactly. You know, like maybe you go back and you find out later that there was an error with that lot number, with that whatever vitamin or whatever it is that you're using. You know, like all of this has to be vetted out. And then when it comes to statistics, like the math, how is the data collected? How is it analyzed? Because the data they're giving you is not the raw data.
Right.
They've done all of their analysis and all their equations, and they're kind of sifting through everything, and they're giving you the polished stuff.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to replicate everything. So that would be another big alarm to look for when you are reading papers.
Right.
So if they're not giving you enough that you feel that it could be repeated by somebody with the tools, then don't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this one, the last one I would say is looking at the results. You want to make sure that there's a lot of results there. Lots of information, but it's not too complicated to understand. Sometimes scientists, again, they start speaking their own language and they realize not everybody speaks the same language.
Right.
If it is a paper that you're looking at and you're looking at the results, like not just like the written results of, you know, what their interpretations are, but you should be able to look at the results too and figure out, okay, well, if I'm looking at this graph plot, you know, they're saying this is, you know, a huge difference, but it doesn't look like a huge difference to me. That should be an alarm bell to you.
Right.
And you want to make sure it is easy to figure out once you have a little bit of the base knowledge of kind of what you're looking at, how plots work, how graphs work, you know, a little bit about what's significant, what's not. And again, these are skills you can learn and develop. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
You just have to take a little bit of time. So those are the four big ones. Yeah, sorry, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think it is an important point to kind of hit home. Sorry, my door just opened. That was creepy. But nobody's home, so I'm like,
Oh.
It's okay, guys. I'm not getting kidnapped. We're in Switzerland, so we're good.
Okay.
It's probably just
nice.
Yes, it is nice here. We're very lucky. But I was gonna say, we have a friend who is well, he studies, like, he's a mathematician, like, and he's a PhD, and So when COVID hit, you know, he was taking all the stats and like redoing them and being like, yeah, this has the potential to be a lot worse than we're actually making it out to be. And so we were actually looking to him for all the information because he was digging through, and he was like, yeah, this one's not true. This is shit. And this is okay. And, you know, it was interesting to, he, you know, I think his background too is in economics too. So he, you know, was making some pretty scary, at the time, some very scary, like warnings about what could happen with the economy. And we're like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But
well,
it's interesting.
It is important to look to the people that do this for a living, and not just listen to the loudest voice. Often I've heard sayings like, you know, normally the louder you speak, the less you know about the topic. And the quieter ones, they realize there is still more to learn. And so that's why, you know, you should be listening to the quieter voices, because any topic we're looking at is always more complicated than people realize.
Yes.
You know, the pandemic it's a really, really complicated, dynamic event.
Yeah.
And we're still in the thick of it. And so, you know, we're trying to learn as much as we can as we go. But I think I get the frustration, because I'm frustrated too with all the different mixed messages. You know, public health officials, they're struggling, and their communication is struggling as a result, and people are getting frustrated. But, you know, what I think the general population has to understand is the science is scrambling to understand what's going on. This is, they keep calling it the novel coronavirus because it's new. This is a totally different strain than anything we've seen. So we don't understand yet. And people are like, well, what's the science saying? Well, it takes a lot of time to put together studies, to collect the data. Like, you have to get approval. Everything has to be approved by an ethics board.
Yeah.
And then you have to run the experiment. That takes time. And then you have to analyze the experiment. And then you have to, you know, write it up, which takes time, get it peer reviewed, and then get it published. And so, you know, we're not going to know very much right away. Like, we know more now in October than we did obviously in like April, May, June.
Yeah.
But, you know, 10 years from now, we'll have a much better understanding because of hindsight, and because we've had time to look at all of the data. You know, when you're in the middle of an experiment, really, that's kind of what this is. It's hard to see through the murky waters. You just can't. So yeah, it is hard. It is complicated. It's frustrating.
Well, and it's not even
exhausting.
it's not even just like it's a novel coronavirus either. It's like the first time that the world in this kind of situation with this much connection has ever had a pandemic, so to speak. I mean, other than like the Ebola and the SARS, I just don't feel like they're even on the same level at this point.
No, I mean, neither of those hit a global scale the way that this pandemic is. So, and then, I mean, the closest other pandemic would be the Spanish flu. But again, the world was such a different place then, you know, like officials were just, oh, you got to quarantine. All right, off you go. You didn't have the issues with the economy, with world travel, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other topics I don't even know about yet because this is not my specialty. So yeah, it's a different beast for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you said something else that was really important too, is like you said, the quiet ones are usually the ones who understand that there's more to understand behind the scenes, kind of.
Yes.
And, you know, it's funny because when Sean and I always make a recommendation, well, either to our clients or for our own health or for anything that we're studying, we always make sure, like whether it's politics or science or whatever it is, we always study both sides of the spectrum. Like, you know, like with the politics going down in the States, this is a little bit off topic, but with the crazy things going on down there, my oldest son actually lives in the States. So we obviously hear a lot from him. And anyways, I was going to say, like, we're always paying attention to like far right, far left, right in the middle, and forming our opinions like that. And we kind of take the same approach to science as well. As like, what does this study say? It contradicts this study. Well, why could that potentially be there? And, you know, we took a bit of heat. Well, sometimes we take a bit of heat. There's certain topics that we kind of sit back on, and there's certain ones that we're very like loudly spoken about. But yeah, we do take a bit of heat for being more quiet, and it's just, you know, we have our opinion and sometimes they're actually quite unpopular. And so, you know, it is usually the quiet ones who know quite a bit, but that's kind of our approach to kind of forming an opinion.
Yep.
Would you take the same kind of approach, or is there something that we're missing?
No, I would take the same approach. Everybody's perspective, everybody's life experience, everybody's position in life where they are currently is so different. We're all unique, and we have to understand there's way more to people's behavior and understanding than just what we see. Like even friend to friend, like we don't understand the whole picture. We're seeing a small sliver of their life.
Yeah.
You know, so you just really, what I can push more than anything else is just don't just blindly follow the loudest person. Do your research, like learn as much as you can about a topic before you make a decision. But even once you've made a decision or you've formed an opinion, realize that there's a very good chance as we learn more about whatever topic you're learning about, your opinion will change.
Yeah.
You know, our knowledge of any one topic is constantly evolving. And so we have to really respect other people's opinions and, you know, live your life the best that you feel. Don't push your opinion on me. I won't push my opinion on you. If you ask, we can definitely have a discussion, a respectful discussion about it. But, you know, as you learn more, you have to modify your opinion and your behavior. And a great example of this right now is the whole Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
You know, I am a Caucasian Canadian. You know, it wasn't easy growing up. I grew up in a single parent home, but I had lots of family members that loved me, and I had lots of opportunity. I had the opportunity to go to post-secondary education, and I had full support with that. You know, so my perspective is very different than a lot of people of color.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you hear a lot of people like, oh, I just don't understand why they're so angry, is sometimes what I hear. And I just think, you know, we haven't walked in their shoes. We have no idea what their life story is. Obviously, they're speaking out because they're frustrated and angry. And so our opinion has to evolve as we learn more about the situation. And it's frustrating for everybody right now. Like there's a lot of volatility in our world right now. And I think in general, we need a lot more patience, a lot more love. Maybe that's naive of me, but if you have an opinion, at least be willing to listen to the flip side and be willing to learn. And, you know, your opinion might not change, you know, but at least try and learn more about the topic before you decide to set your feet in cement and keep that opinion.
Yeah. And I think that for me is probably one of the things that frustrated me the most when I was teaching, actually. And I'll be honest, like, I mean, I am exactly on point with you. Somebody's belief is their belief, their experience within that is their experience. And definitely we should not be pushing our opinions onto other people. And I think that honestly was one of the things that I struggled the most with, was students who refused to look at the whole picture, because I was like, we're in a field of, well, science-based, but like also mixed with body, mind, spirit, also mixed with like biochemistry, with genetics, and whatever's working for you may not be working for that other person. And if you take that approach of being like a stick in the mud, okay, sure, maybe that's good for your niche in terms of like finding your customers, but at the same time, like, you could be doing something detrimental to somebody's health if you refuse to coach them a different way, you know, like, I don't know. I'm gonna bring up a topic. We can talk about it or we cannot. But for instance, like, my son has severe allergies and a really, really sensitive gut, and so veganism would not work for him. Like,
I was just thinking vegans, because I mean, there's so much controversy around whether you eat animal products or not. And it really, I totally agree with you. You know, for some people go vegan, or they have to go vegan for whatever choice. I mean, people that suffer from severe cardiovascular disease, vegan is the best option for you.
Yeah,
like
for
hands
sure.
down, science supports it. For other people, vegan just won't work. Like I'm severely anemic. And I just, no matter what I do, I can't get enough iron. If I've tried going vegan and I can't function.
Yeah.
Because all of my micronutrients just tank.
Yeah. Same with me.
So it,
And
it works. Yeah, it works for some, it doesn't work for others.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If you want to be vegan and you feel great, really, how do you feel?
Yes.
Is really what it comes down to. What is your body telling you? What are your morals and ethics telling you? And find the right place for you, and don't push what works for you on everybody else.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's a little mini experiment is always kind of how I say it to people.
Oh, totally.
You know, is if I had to like recount the ways the number of ways I've tried eating to find the perfect thing for me.
Yes.
Like I've literally tried everything, like veganism, vegetarianism, you know, what else? Paleo, carnivore. Like I've done it all. And honestly, carnivore was probably the best that I ever I did, but I felt like it was like I still miss vegetables a bit, you know, like because I do like vegetables.
Yeah.
But,
do you know who Mark Hyman is?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he coined the term, I think by accident, pegan, which is like a mix of paleo and vegan. So you have some animal products, but really you focus on a lot of vegetables and a lot of plant-based with the meat to complement it and make sure you're getting enough, you know, all the essential amino acids, you're getting B12, you're getting iron, and some of the other, especially some of the essential fatty acids as well. You just can't get that from a plant-based diet. And so that's the one I'm pretty on par with right now.
Because I saw that the other day. Somebody's like, I'm a paleo vegan. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I was like, that's a new one.
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I was like, is there more? There's more now.
Well,
but
there's
I guess
always more. People are always trying to coin new like terms that'll go viral. And
so what's the difference between that and like a Wahls protocol? Do you know?
I think if I remember correctly, the Wahls protocol really limits things like beans, things with really high amounts of phytic acid.
Okay.
And leptins are the other ones that you find a lot in beans, and that causes some people a lot of digestive upset if they have digestive issues.
Yeah.
And so they really.
Whereas the pegan would still include legumes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And lots of grains and stuff. Like it's just all plant-based.
Yeah.
A little bit. But I mean, when I talk in class, I always laugh because it's, you know, everybody's like, oh, I'm paleo, oh, I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian, I'm pescatarian, and all these different terms.
Yeah.
And all are like, oh, I changed my diet and I feel better. The one consistent thing across the board is that they're cutting out all the, am I allowed to swear?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, they're cutting out all the shit.
Yes.
Right? They're eliminating all the processed food. They're eliminating all of the candy and all of the sugar and all of the, you know, deep fried crap. And they're eating real food.
Yeah.
Really. And so
that's why you're feeling better.
That's why you're feeling better. You know, like you're actually putting effort into your health.
Yeah.
And you're making smarter choices. And the smarter choices you make will vary person to person, but really across the board, eat less crap.
Yeah.
Drink more water, get more sleep, get more exercise.
Well, and move and breathe.
There's not a lot of secrets to it. It's not complicated. You know, the fine nuances of it are, you know, where research comes in, but you know, at the base of it all, just eat real food. Take a little bit more care to get out in nature and get some exercise and move and get enough sleep, get enough water, and you'll feel better.
You know, it's absolutely true because, you know, I think I spent so much time when I first became a holistic nutritionist. Well, even before that, just trying to figure out what was the best thing out there. What was the thing that I was going to recommend, you know. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I kind of hate this because it's pigeonholing me and I don't want to be pigeonholed. And so now, like with my own health, and especially with fibromyalgia, because it is so debilitating, you have to get better, because like otherwise you're just like in your bed dying, essentially, is what it feels like. And so I really started diving into, okay, like what if I just took care of myself? You know, like what if I just, at the very basic level, you know, like I started having baths again, and I started doing yoga, and I started meditation, and I started making sure that I had time to myself, like just to be me and be out in the world. And honestly, I think that's where my health made the biggest shift. It had nothing to do necessarily with, because I looked at all the research. Like I have sent my doctor emails being like, so can we go down this rabbit hole next? Can we look at this? And like,
I have the same relationship with my doctor. I'll go in and be like, here's the blood test I want to get done this time. And she's like, okay, well, let's talk about this.
Yes. Mine's usually really good, because he's like he's a immunologist and an allergist, as well as a family doctor. And so I've been like, well, the first thing was like going to a sleep doctor, so like making sure that my brain was working properly and all of those things. And then we started looking at the genetics of health and stuff with him, and like the MTHFR gene and all of those things. And I was like, you know, is there any weight to this? And then he's like, let me call my geneticist friend. And she's like, yeah, no, like, don't worry about that. So yeah, it was really interesting just to like have those approaches to be able to kind of take back my own understanding of my health. And then it was only when all of those things kind of, I don't want to say failed me, but I got nothing back from the doctors. I got nothing back from my blood results. And so eventually I was like, okay, well, how do I take care of myself on the most like basic level? And it came down to, you know, food, sleep, stress.
Stress. I was going to say, stress is a huge one too. It wasn't until I really addressed stress in my life that I started noticing a huge improvement in my overall health. And part of that too, talk about a rabbit hole, but it's like, okay, so what are my main stressors? Being late. Was a big one. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you laugh there.
No, it's perfect.
And so it's like, okay, so obviously there are times when it's critical. I'm on time, doctor's appointments, Zoom meetings, things like that. But, you know, if I'm a little bit late for like meeting a friend for coffee, is it worth stressing over? No, you send them a text, sorry, I'm running late. I'll be right there. I didn't forget about you. I still love you. Please don't leave. You know, most of the time people understand. Another big one was like, so we have 2 cats, a dog, and 3 kids. My house is never clean.
Oh man, that would drive me nuts.
Yeah. It's, you know, dust bunnies everywhere, like the little fluff balls floating down the hallway, drive me crazy. So I vacuum a lot, which is fine. Cause I find that cathartic because it's instantaneous results. So, but this led me down the minimalism hole, because if I have less clutter, then there's less to clean, you know? And so it's like, okay, well, how, you know, what are my triggers? How can I be proactive to just not have them there? And, you know, what can I let go of? And, you know, it was a bit of a shift, because my husband at first was like, why aren't you stressing about this? We'd have friends coming over, and, you know, there would be a bit of clutter on the counter and stuff. And I'm like, they're our friends. They love us. You know, if our house is not perfectly clean and tidy, they don't care. And if they do, I don't want to be friends with them.
Well, dropping the perfectionism. And I think, you know what is really interesting too, is that I'm finding a lot of holistic nutritionists are perfectionists. Like most of the time when I talk to people, when we talk about like body, mind, spirit stuff, or anything in relation to, you know, holistic nutrition, it always boils down to, well, when I, you know, just stop, like I let go, you let go of all of the things that are on your top list to do, you know, like you said, the clutter, or organizing your thing by rainbow colors, or whatever it is that you're doing.
You've seen the home edit.
Oh girl, that is what I have been binge watching.
I know.
Sean's like,
I love it. I love it and hate it, because I'm like, there's so much stuff, and it just really points out our consumerism. And I'm like, I don't want to be like that. Like, I don't want to just mindlessly spend and keep all this clutter. Everything has to be organized by color. But at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, it's so calming, like to have everything nice and organized and clean surfaces. And I know what you mean. I've been watch it too, and then I struggle because I'm like, should I organize my whole house? Is this worth the effort?
See, I'm kind of lucky in that sense because when we moved, we just moved a year and a half ago, and we only moved with 7 suitcases.
Oh, wow.
So we literally started with nothing, and we've literally just been like packing our little stuff into this house and decorating it exactly how we want it. And like, once we outgrow that space, we've been getting rid of stuff. And honestly, like, this is something I love to coach with holistic nutritionists when they're building their business too, because it's one of the things that I think stops us from actually starting out in nutrition is dropping the perfectionism and dropping everything having to be perfect and understanding everything. And like you said, it's like learning a whole new language, and the more you go through it, the more you're going to understand it. I mean, I'm sure the day that you started working in the lab, you didn't feel 100% comfortable.
No. Yeah. I remember, you know, you learn about these different techniques. One of them is called a Western, where you have a sample from cells and you put it in this gel and it all separates out by size, so you can kind of see what's there. And I hadn't done one since like university, and it had been a few years since I'd been out because I'd been in other labs that didn't do them. And I, you know, my first day, and he's like, okay, here's your samples. I need you to run a Western. And I was like, okay.
What?
Yeah. So I mean, everybody has those moments where they're just like imposter syndrome, you know, but it's get over it. It's everybody has to start somewhere. You know, you're not going to know everything about everything. Embrace it, you know, realize you have more to learn, and never stop learning. Always keep learning, you know, just challenge yourself to learn something new all the time, and find your format, find out which way works for you, and go. And this is the wonderful thing. Like, as much as I struggle this love-hate relationship with technology, it has really opened up a whole new world in terms of what we can learn. You know, you want to learn how to do anything, you can find a YouTube video on it, you can find a podcast about it, you can find a blog about it,
you can Google it. It's
So
the first thing that I actually say to my kids when they come and ask me a question. Have you Googled it? No. Okay, well, I'm going to have to Google it. So you just go off and Google it yourself and try and make an informed decision, you know, and let me know what you figure out.
No, it's
like an encyclopedia like we had when we were in, you know, school.
But it's endless. I mean, it's really amazing. You do have to be careful though now where you are getting your information. So I guess that's one of the other warnings too, to go back to lit research. You know, don't just blindly listen to people. If you're reading an article, make sure that they have resources there. You know, so don't just be like, oh, well, they said this. So, you know, social media, I think, is really bad for that, because you read these articles and making all these claims. You know, and people are like, oh, I read somewhere. Well, where'd they get their information from?
It's very true. And that, again, is going back to like, well, know your source, first of all, but also like when you're arguing with somebody, well, we'll say discussing a topic with somebody.
You're having a discussion.
When you're having a discussion about whether or not cholesterol is bad for you, and you're trying to find the right topic in that sphere, knowing like where they're getting their research from, and being able to look at both sides, again, like I said. So that is one of my next questions. So you mentioned PubMed earlier. That is one good place to get good research paper to evaluate, I'm going to say. What are some other sources that people can be using?
So PubMed is my go-to. I do a lot of like keyword searches there. If you're new to a topic, I would highly suggest getting comfortable with the Cochrane database. So the Cochrane database is, again, it's an open database. You won't necessarily have access to the article, but they're all reviews on whatever scientific topic that you want to learn more about. If there's a review written about it, it will most likely be in the Cochrane database. And from there, again, there's some really good areas within the Cochrane database where you can find the right keywords. It goes back to language. if you're not using the right words to look up articles, you're not going to find what you're looking for because the matches won't align.
Right.
And so there are, if you take some time and kind of go to Cochrane database and kind of flip through and see some of the different pages there is a section where you can type in, like inflammation, and it'll bring up all the keywords associated with inflammation. So now you know what words you should be using.
Right.
So that's a really good tool to use as well. I really like Google Scholar. There is quite a few more open source databases as well.
So not Wikipedia?
No.
Sorry, I had to throw it in there just to so we could, make sure people realize that wasn't a valid.
Yeah, no, it's, most of the time I think they are getting better at vetting out their information on there.
Yeah. But
for science related stuff, there's way better sources.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can, if you want, do you guys do like show notes and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Find a few other pages, because there are a few like science followers I do follow on social media that talk about this quite a bit, because there is a lot of debate around open source versus paid source. It's just so expensive and it's so elitist.
Yeah.
People are trying to push back against it.
Right.
But Google Scholar is a pretty good one. There's a little tab you can, if you go to Google Scholar, I probably am going to butcher the technology names, but there's like a little button you can put up on your bar, and it's a little blue symbol, so that you just click on that. Like I copy and paste the title of the paper.
Do you mean to bookmark it? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's not really, I don't know if it's a bookmark, but it's like a little button you can put up in it's probably a bookmark. I'm sure there's another name.
Is it like an extension in your Chrome so that you can just click on it? Okay.
Yeah. See, I'm showing my lack of knowledge in this area.
It's okay. I am giving you my knowledge.
See, we share.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just kind of type it in and you'll be able to see right away if you can find a PDF. So typically if it's a PDF, it means it is the published form. So that's something to keep in mind too. Often if it's in HTML, then it means it's the pre-published format.
Interesting.
And so there might be differences in the papers because it hasn't been peer reviewed. It's sometimes authors try and fight back, and they'll try and release the paper so that people still have access to it, but there are legalities around it, so they can't really put out the peer reviewed publishable form. So like it might be like a pre-edited format, but you can still get some of the information. So those are a few of the good ones that I really like. Another really good source that I like going to are university sites or college sites. I know Harvard has a fantastic resource page there. They're really promoting a lot of the research that they do. And so they'll talk about some of the new research that's coming out. And this is based, like it's written by all the health professionals and science professionals there. So that one, even though it's not necessarily through.
What about Johns Hopkins and stuff like that?
I haven't been on their site, so I'm not really sure about that one, but I would think so. Again, any of the more reputable universities, often they will have resource pages there where you can learn a little bit. So one of the best examples I have for this is the Canada Food Guide, or the food guides that are put out. And I mean, there's so much debate and there's so much lobbying and there's so much controversy around it. And Harvard was just like, well, we're just going to put our own out based on the research we've done.
I think I saw that actually.
Yeah. And so they were just like, forget, government. We're just going to use our own research and publish our own Harvard. It's called Harvard My Plate, if you want to go look it up.
I'm going to Google it right now while we're talking, because I think that's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah.
Harvard My Plate.
Harvard My Plate. And so again, they just publish what they feel is the best research supported evidence and make recommendations. And so especially with health and food related stuff, that was really good. So, and I like it because it's a really good visual.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, it's just a plate. What should your plate look like? Half of your plate should be mostly vegetables.
Yeah.
Fruit does carry a lot of sugar in it naturally, which is okay, but we don't want to be having like a plate full of fruit because it's sugar. A quarter of it was whole grains.
Yep.
And then a quarter of it was some type of protein, and they included lots of different kinds of protein sources, vegetarian and non-vegetarian. There was no dairy recommendations. You know, the dairy industry has done a fantastic job of pushing themselves onto everybody's plate, but it's not necessary. And they talked about the benefits of a healthy fat source. And so I think in their, if I remember correctly, their plate showed olive oil.
Yeah, it's got use healthy oils like olive oil and canola oil. And here in Europe, like canola oil is like actually okay. For cooking on salad, and at the table, and then limit butter, avoid trans fat, which we know.
But they have a cup of water there.
Drink water.
And I can't remember if that one had any recommendations for like every once in a while you can have a glass of wine or something like that. I can't remember.
Well, it says drink water, tea, or coffee with little or no sugar, limit milk and dairy, and juice, 1 small glass per day, avoid sugary drinks, which again, like those are like super simple. And honestly, when I was working with clients, the things that actually worked the most with them was not like making them go paleo or making go vegan or whatever it was. It was honestly like you said, taking out the junk food, taking out the trans fat, taking out, the crappy food, like this says, cold meat or cold cuts and bacon and processed foods.
Actually, there was a really interesting, I'm trying to find it because I found it and then I didn't save it to my computer and I'm kicking myself now. It was a really good meta-analysis. So meta-analysis is like the tip of the pyramid in terms of how much significance it has. It's like the highest of the highest, because what they do is they take all these articles, all these published research articles, and they combine all of the data, and then they these are fancy mathematicians and statisticians that go through and do all this really cool analysis, but they're able to pool together so many data points, which means it's hard to refute, because when you're looking at like tens to hundreds of thousands of data points and analyzing, it is way more statistically significant. It's hard to dispute when you're looking at hundreds of thousands of data points and you're able to glean what's going on. So there was a really cool meta-analysis done on type 2 diabetes. And one of the things I remember learning in school is in CSNN is that it used to be everybody thought, well, you eat too much sugar and then you develop type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. But what they're finding now is there's a much stronger link to processed meat. And so the more processed meat you eat, the higher your risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And the thinking behind it is that it really gums up the receptors. Because of all there is a lot of saturated fat, and a lot of the way that the fat is, the way that it sits long-term, like it gets oxidized, and it really messes with how your body is able to chemically communicate. And so here's a good example of where we're learning that things are not really what we thought they were. Type 2 diabetes is more complicated than we realized. It's not just too much sugar equals type 2. So
it's very much, the science behind it is actually really complex in terms of like the cellular behavior when you have too much, when you have too much sugar, you have too much processed food, too many chemicals coming into the body, and how that actually affects cellular respiration and how the mitochondria function, and how that raises changes hormones and interleukin 6 and all of those things. I actually took, I don't know if you've ever heard of metabolic balance, but they teach specifically for weight loss and metabolic health. And of course, through that, you can use it with infertility and diabetes and all of these things. And they teach how it affects all of the hormones down the chain. And that was absolutely fascinating to me, because for instance, with fibro, it's such a insulin resistant almost kind of thing. But then when you go and get your blood work done, nothing shows up, you know, like there's no sign of insulin resistance, there's no sign of like blood sugar issues. But then if you think about all the like downstream things, if they were testing for those, they probably would see something, and it's just not to the point. But you know, like it's very fascinating. Yeah. I wonder if he was using whatever paper you were talking about.
It could be. And I've gone back and tried to find it, and it's eluding me. But yeah, I want to find it so that I can post it. It's actually one of the I'd love to do one of our own podcasts on it, so that we can just educate, really. You know, I am so for education for everybody, and just.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what your podcast is?
Yeah, I would love to. I'm so excited about this project. So it's called rEATsearch.
I love the name, by the way.
Search. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun play on words. And it's all about research involving health and nutrition. And what I've paired up with Lisa, I reached out to Lisa. She's another science nerd.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get somebody that we could banter with and talk about and kind of push each other to really raise the bar in terms of the topics that we were going to cover. And so every episode, typically we take a paper and we share it. And so we dissect it. So a lot of people do struggle with, you know, sitting down and reading a paper. And so we're trying to bring that knowledge to whoever wants to learn about it in a way that's much more digestible. The puns are just never ending here.
Oh, dude, don't worry. I try and throw puns into everything I do, you know.
Yeah.
They add benefit, I think.
They do. Yeah. You know, we need to laugh more in general. But yeah, so every episode we try and keep it short too. Like our goal is to keep every episode to about half an hour, because we figure that's how much time people have for a commute, for a walk. You know, if you're doing dishes or cleaning the kitchen or vacuuming, like a half an hour is a really easy amount of time to get in. And so we share up-to-date current research on health and wellness so that people can understand what the most current information is.
And what platforms are you guys on for that?
So we are doing podcasts right now we're on Stitcher, and we are on, what's the other one? Spotify.
Awesome.
Talk about learning new technology. I'm trying to get on iTunes.
Yeah.
But I am struggling to get it on. I keep hitting like technical issues, and I keep calling and asking for help, and they're like, we can't help you. So we're struggling with that. We would like to get on iTunes just so that it is more accessible to people. We are in the midst. I mean, we're still quite new. We've only been doing this for, you know, a month or so.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a bit of a learning curve, which is good. I'm learning.
It's a good one though. It's something that Sean and I are telling people in the nutrition world to do. Like, do videos, do podcasts, because that's what's coming up. Like soon we're not going to be reading, you know, blogs anymore. It's great for like search engine optimization, but you know, people are on their phones, usually on silent. If you're like a mom, you know, putting the kids to bed, your phone's on silent and you're just reading what's going on. You know, so you guys are hitting the nail on the head there. Are you guys going to be up on YouTube?
I think down the line, we would like to get up on YouTube, so that, because there are a lot of visuals, especially with, you know, what we're talking about. There's a lot of visuals that we could be using. To start though, we're just sticking with podcasts until we just get more comfortable with that. It was funny because when we first started talking about doing it, and both of us, you know, talking about the research, finding the papers, interpreting them, that's totally our comfort zone. Everything else involved in a podcast was very new. And so I just kept saying, let's just, you know, bite-sized pieces. Let's just take what we can handle. We'll learn how to edit. We'll learn how to, you know, publish. We'll learn how to start promoting ourselves on social. And we'll just take it, you know, one bite at a time and slowly grow. So eventually, yes. But I'm not sure how far down the road it'll be. For now, we're just trying to get more episodes on our podcast out.
Yeah.
So that people can start listening and learning and hopefully enjoying some of the stuff we're sharing.
Amazing. Well, before we finish up our conversation, Do you want to share either your favorite book right now or your favorite podcast? Or both?
Oh, that's a hard question.
I know.
I'm not sure if you can tell behind me, but I kind of like
see
books.
them. I see them all.
And most of these are like reference books. I'm such a nerd. I go to the beach and I'm like, did you know about gut health? And my husband's like, seriously?
It's usually what I'm reading too. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I just love it. Like that's my happy place. I've got a few books on the go. I'm reading, we're actually doing upcoming, a really fun podcast on how to understand statistics.
Oh,
and I know most people don't think fun and statistics should go in the same sentence, but they're going to, because it is important. And it's so much more common than people realize. Like you're looking at the weather, you want to go away, let's look at the weather forecast. That's statistics. It's all just about probability and understanding your chances of things happening. So we're going to break it down so that there's a lot less fear around it. There's a lot less confusion. Just simplify statistics. So that'll be good for when you're watching the news and you start seeing, like, drives me crazy when the news comes up and they're like, oh my God, look at these numbers. And I'm like, you haven't added numbers to that axis or labels. Like, you should not be putting that up anywhere, so little things like that. How can you understand? So I'm reading a few different statistics books right now. One of them is David Levitin. Okay. And then the other one, I've forgotten his name.
I also have a horrible time with that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Calling bullshit on statistics, I think is what it was. Yeah. So I'm reading those. I'm reading one on gut health. I'm actually, like I said, I always have a few on the go, especially if they're not like fiction. I love fiction too, but I can only focus on one of those at a time. Whereas when I'm reading reference, I kind of like hop back and forth. I'm reading one about Egyptian history, which is really cool. I know, I'm all over the map.
Don't worry though, because like if I like looked at my Kindle right now, I've got like, I don't know, like the witches like self-care guide, and then I've got like Sacred Cow, which just came out by Rob Wolf and Diana Rogers. I've got The Brain's Way of Healing. I've got Eastern Body, Western Mind, and they're all like tucked near my bed. So then when I have this like profound moment, I can just like grab the book that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
Oh, I know. And I totally go against the rules and like write in mine and I fold the corners down, which I don't typically like to do with books, but sometimes I'm like, this is a really good point. I can't forget about this. I need to be able to go back and find it.
You know what I did the other day, and I do this all the time actually, is like when I'm reading, if I find something super cool, it goes in my note on my phone. And so today I remembered, and I learned the other day because we were talking about Eastern medicine, is that spirit actually means breath. I can't remember what language it was, but it was like 5,000 years ago, the indigenous people would use their word for spirit would be breath.
That's really cool.
Right? And anybody who is like a yogi or loves breath work would find that super fascinating. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite books that I've read is called Soul of an Octopus. And it's a nonfiction one. It's actually just about octopuses, not octopi, they're octopuses. And just how fascinating they are. And the reason why I loved it so much and why it really stuck with me is it's science-based. Like, it's a nonfiction, it's science-based. It's about a woman's, she literally just becomes friends with an octopus.
Have you seen the documentary on?
Yes, I love that one. I've seen it twice already because I'm making my kids watch it. I'm like, look at this. This is so cool. Yeah. But I love how it changed my perception of things. Yeah. And that's really what I want to challenge how I see the world. And, I know things are way more complicated and way more, there's more to everything than what we first see. Yeah. And that's, I think, why I really loved it so much is, you look at this octopus and it's just a big pile of goop, really. Like it's a liquid, it's a truly liquid animal.
And so fascinating how it changes so quickly and grows horns and then shrinks its horns and then changes its color and smushes and
and they're just and humans through history have always underestimated the animal world and the plant world too.
Yeah.
And we're slowly realizing, like animals have emotions, animals are able to play, and animals have a deeper understanding of how things work. Like we have not given them enough credit. And so challenging that perception of things is really why I love that. So if you want to read a really good book, I would recommend picking it up, Soul of an Octopus.
I'm going to have to do that, because I did love the little documentary that that was on Netflix. And because I grew up near the ocean, of course I grew up in BC, and I grew up like 10 minutes from the water. And so marine biology was obviously like the first thing that kind of grabbed my attention when it comes to science. Just because the ocean is so amazing. But you're right, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, is like slowing down and taking that moment to remember that nature is a lot smarter than we think it is, and that it's it's a lot older than we are, and a lot more complex, like you said. Like it one of my favorite debates, I guess, in this whole realm is like the ecology and how we grow our food and how we connect with the earth. And that is, when you dig into the science of all of that, is very fascinating. And even when you just go and spend time, you'll learn something completely fascinating. I went out the other day and did a forest walk and was looking at all the mushrooms that I could find in the forest, and then trying to figure out what they were, and which ones are poisonous and which ones are what, because again, like, you can learn so much from the plant world. It's quite amazing.
There's one of the podcasts I listen to quite often is called This Podcast Will Kill You. Have you heard that one yet?
No.
So there are two brilliant women. They're both named Erin. And one of them is an MD PhD.
Okay.
And one of them is a PhD both in epidemiology. And so they talk about disease. But they have these really cool episodes where they do crossovers with plants. And so they'll talk about plant compounds. And so they'll talk about like how it's used by people, what it does in people. But then they have this guy that comes on as like it must be somebody they know from school or something. And he's a botanist, and he'll talk about like why the plant makes it in the first place, like what purpose, and it's funny because often people think like, oh well, like you take ASA or salicylic acid, which is like aspirin, it was originally derived from plants, but like why would the plant produce that to begin with? And it turns out it's a defense mechanism. Like it's very bitter, and so it would really discourage animals from eating the plant, and so it was able to survive better. It comes full circle. It's really interesting that
and how some
connected.
Plants counteract other plants' effects, like a stinging nettle. When you get stung and you put some lavender on, it goes away almost instantaneously. And so it's interesting when you have the compounds kind of mixing that way. It's funny because I've always kind of felt a little bit like witchy, like, I don't know if you ever read the Outlander series or not.
Oh my God. Yes.
Because if you're a science person and you love reading, like, I mean, you have to, So I always kind of feel like Claire in the Outlander series, where I'm like very science-based, but I also kind of feel like a bit of a witch, and like, I'm super connected to the earth somehow. And so it's always fun to go into nature and like find out as much information, because if the world does crumble, somebody needs to know what we can eat and what we can't eat out there. So that's the kind of research that I've been doing lately, but amazing. Well, this was a really fun chat.
That was fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on with us. And I'll make sure to put in the show notes where they can find you for rEATsearch, and also the best places to find well-published research.
Yes, I can get, I'll make sure to get some stuff for you to add. There's a few different sources. I'll add some of the websites for you for anybody who wants to go start doing their own research. And if you don't want to go do your own research, start listening to our podcast, because we'll be sharing all the most up to date. One of the most recent ones, I mean, Lisa has hers and I have mine. One of the really cool ones that I was doing was the microbiome, and
yes.
how it actually, like, the culture we get in our gut can improve our health through our cardiovascular system. Like, it actually will help lower LDL,
Yeah.
which is one of the markers for cardiovascular disease. So it was like, I didn't know it could do that. That's so cool. And it's because the bacteria actually uptake excess cholesterol.
Yeah.
So,
Well, exactly. That's kind of back to what we were talking about in terms of the health of the soil, right? Like,
yeah,
it's a microbiome. Like, I mean, it's the same as our gut.
yep.
The gut is really on the outside of us, not on the inside. Because
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's like and it's a continuous tube, right? So like,
Yep.
I always like to think of like our gut just like soil,
Yep.
and the microbes in soil help sequester carbon as well. So,
Yep.
you know, like, it's always really fascinating for me to kind of put that, like, okay, well, the microbe in the soil can sequester something. And then when we learn about our gut, for instance, in school, we learn, you know, that they help create or make vitamins as well.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, like you said, it's like eating this cholesterol and making something good for us. So yeah, it's man, science. I could talk about it all day, honestly.
I know, me too.